Thank you. We will resume the March 11, 2021 meeting of the Palm Desert City Council, successor agency to the Palm Desert Redevelopment Agency and Housing Authority. We previously adjourned to closed session. And Councilmember Jonathan, would you please, excuse me, first we need to call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Harnick.
Here.
Councilman Jonathan.
Present.
Councilmember Nestandi.
Here.
Councilmember Quintanilla.
Presente.
Mayor Kelly.
Here.
All present.
Great. And now, Councilmember Jonathan, would you be so kind as to lead us in the pledge?
Yes, thank you. Please join me in honoring our great country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Our inspiration invocation will be offered by Mayor Pro Tem Jen Harnick.
Thank you, Mayor. So in 1981, the week beginning March 7th was celebrated as Women's History Week. Then in 1987, Congress, realizing that 1 week was simply not enough, and promptly with a little nudge from a petition by the National Women's History Project, designated March as Women's History Month. When we think of the women who've influenced our history, our contemporary lives, and our personal lives, whether they put their mark on politics, the arts, science, or if we note the difference that all of our mothers, sisters, and daughters have made, one thing is for sure, is women make history every day. So here in the Coachella Valley, we have a grassroots organization, the Girlfriend Factor, and their motto is, if you want to change the world, educate a woman. So let's continue to change the world for the better during this month and beyond. And I implore all of you to find a meaningful way to celebrate and observe Women's History Month. Thank you.
And thank you. We will offer one meaningful way as our second presentation this evening. Our first presentation to the City Council will be from Southern California's Public Affairs Manager, Deborah McGarry, regarding an upgrade project.
Mayor Kelly.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I just got it. But before that presentation, I know the city attorney is eager to give us a report from closed session.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The City Council took no reportable actions on the items listed on the agenda, but the council did add, as a late emergency add item, a piece of litigation that was just recently served on some city council members entitled Veron versus the City of Palm Desert. So we briefly discussed that litigation, and I would request that the City Council formally add that to the agenda by a 4/5 vote, given that it arose after the City Council agenda was posted and required immediate attention.
Thank you. Does that conclude your report?
It does.
So I see Ms. McGarry has joined us.
Mayor Kelly, are we going to take a vote on that action to add?
I thought the implication was that we had already done that.
Well, we did it in closed session, but we need to formally do it in open session so that
All
it
right.
shows on the record. So
All right.
So I would move that we add that to the closed session.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Let's take the vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Harnick.
Yes.
Councilman Jonathan.
Aye.
Councilmember Nestandi.
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla.
Aye.
Mayor Kelly.
Yes.
Motion carries to add that item to closed session. Thank you.
Now, the ever patient Ms. McGarry is joined by John Cullum of Southern California Gas to bring us a report about a recent upgrade project at our Palm Desert Housing Authority property, One Quail Place. You have the floor. Welcome. Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. We've only been doing this for a year now. You would think I would know. Again, I just want to say thank you so much. And I also would like to introduce Aaron Thompson. He is with Southern California Edison. He was also part of our partnership. So this is a partnership between SoCalGas, Southern California Edison, the California Public Utilities Commission. And before I share, because I want to go ahead and share the screen here, I also want to thank the City of Palm Desert staff. I want to thank Stephen and Jessica, Teresa. We spent a lot of time, and also the city manager, Mr. Bob Hargraves as well. We had several meetings in which to go ahead and move this forward. So it's been taken a little bit of time to move forward, but we're really glad that we finally have achieved our goal. So I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to share my screen, and I will, here we go. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm going to turn this over to John, and he's going to go ahead and talk about his part with regards to SoCalGas's role at One Quail Place and the upgrades that we did. And then Aaron will go ahead and wrap us up so that we could kind of keep this short and brief, because I know how much the city loves brevity.
Great. Well, good evening, everybody. Again, my name is John Cullum with the gas company, and we have the great privilege of working with the Palm Desert Housing Authority to really go out and to One Quail Place and really provide health, safety, and comfort measures that improve the quality of life for the tenants out there. And so, Deborah, if you would hit next slide, please. I think those maybe next slide.
There we go.
There we go. So there's an overview for those of you who may or may not know much about the housing project out there at One Quail. It has 384 units, and there's 37 buildings out there. And the primary measures that the gas company were able to go out and install were domestic hot water boilers. So these are boilers that heat the hot water, that provide it for showers, you know, for anywhere else you might need hot water. This is where you're getting it from, is from these boilers. These boilers are 1 million BTUs, so they're large boilers that provide the hot water out there. And really the biggest value, aside from a 15% gas savings, the biggest value was the $1 million in equipment costs that the gas company, through the California Public Utilities Commission, who authorized this program, we provided that at no cost to the city of Palm Desert to replace that equipment. So you had really $1 million of equipment that went into this facility. And this kind of shows kind of before and after. These boilers were about, you'll see on the right, there's two examples of boilers. They're about 18 to 20 years old, which is around the useful life cycle of those boilers. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see the replacement of those boilers. We went out there and provided you brand new storage tanks, new plumbing, new piping, installation, all the ancillary services that go along with the boiler. All those amenities were provided to really improve, again, like I said, the health, safety, and comfort of these low-income tenants, and we're really doing a service, to them to give them a better quality of life. And so we thank you for your participation in this project, and we look forward to maybe finding some more opportunities to work with you. So with that, I'll give Edison and Aaron Thomas, please, if you talk about what Edison did in our partnership.
Thank you. Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. You guys know me. I'm Aaron Thomas, the representative from Southern California Edison, representing the city of Palm Desert. Sincere thanks to the city and the residents and all the housing authority. Everybody's this is a great way, we believe, to be able to have different groups come together for a common good. And next slide, please. This is our part of the One Quail project. Is what we really wanted to do is to reduce energy usage without sacrificing comfort. We did a lot of replacements of bulbs, which you think isn't a whole lot, but anybody that's ever worked with bulbs and different energy efficient bulbs, sometimes you forget about it and all of a sudden, oh, I need a new bulb. For over almost 500 assorted bulbs were replaced. HVAC units, almost 300 HVAC units were replaced for the units there. 10 pool spa lights were replaced and 7 refrigerators were replaced. And so next slide, please. You can just see how much kilowatts of energy is going to be saved in the next year. Almost 200,000 kilowatts will be saved based off of all these different replacements of HVACs units and refrigerators. But at the end of the day, the residents win. We definitely want to thank the ratepayers again for this initiative and funding it. But we're really, really thankful that this partnership came together. And the really cool thing, in our opinion, it's the very first time that we've done this using this CAM model. And so when we start creating something new, we're going to be redundant when we do this, which I think is really, really exciting for all of us. And I think I'll close this out, I think. Does anybody have any questions on the city council?
Looks like you are perfectly clear. And thank you so much. This was also presented at our Housing Commission, and the commissioners were quite well pleased with what they heard. So thank you.
I have a quick question. How was it? And thank you, because this sounds wonderful. How was the program initiated? Where did it come from?
Yeah,
John,
I
do you
can-
want to answer that?
Absolutely. So the way that the program works is we go out and we screen looking for low-income properties within our service territory. And 65% or more of the tenants that occupy these dwellings must meet an income standard. And that standard is 200% of federal poverty level or below. And so when you meet that threshold, you're looking at really, and these are what we call deed restricted, which means the state of California has identified the Palm Desert Housing Authority as a special agency that receives HUD funding in addition to the utility programs. And so we're able to offer these programs really to, if you think about a low income population, these are really the low income of low income, and it provides them even greater services that the state of California and the utilities believe we have a mission to serve. So that's kind of where it comes from.
Thank you so much.
Councilmember Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor. Just very quickly, I want to thank you, Deborah, John, Aaron. You've made an investment in our community. You've made a difference in our community and in the lives of over 600 people. And particularly in this time when we can ill afford to make that kind of investment, you've stepped up to the plate. Thank you so very, very much. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Quintanilla.
I wanted to echo the sentiments and express the gratitude to 200,000 kilowatt hours. I just out of curiosity, I'd wonder if anybody's calculated the carbon offset of how many vehicles off the road that would be. But also wanted to highlight that you mentioned the quality of life, and a lot of times people think of the most, as you mentioned, the concentrated of the most low income, and sometimes people think they just deserve access to services but not quite focus on their quality of life. So thank you for making this an issue for how our residents are able to have comfort in our summers, and they get pretty brutal. So thank you for that very necessary service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I was
So, well, thank you again so much. Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
No, I just wanted to say thank you for everything, and that's it. And I will just, that's the end of our comments. We wanted to be brief.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And so
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome to stay for all of our exciting business, but you're also welcome to go have dinner.
Well, thank you again.
All right. Our next presentation is one, if we were in the council chamber, I would most assuredly ask Councilmember Quintanilla to join me at the podium for this presentation. So we'll just have to imagine that. And this follows up on Mayor Pro Tem Harnick's eloquent encouragement for us to find special ways to celebrate Women's History Month. We have a proclamation. Whereas California established the second Friday in March as Latina History Day in 1999, honoring the longstanding leadership of Latinas in California communities, protecting the physical, economic, and spiritual needs of others. And whereas the proclamation of Latina History Day during Women's History Month memorializes the important role Latinas play in American society. And whereas Latina entrepreneurs are a key economic engine for California, generating 19 billion in revenues and employing over 86,000 individuals in California, filling gaps and otherwise unmet community needs. And whereas we celebrate contemporary Latinas who continue to build upon the foundation of our ancestors for the betterment of future generations. And whereas since its founding in 1989, Hispanos Organized for Political Equality, HOPE, has remained dedicated to improving the education, political, and economic status of Latinas throughout its conferences and flagship programs, positively impacting the lives of over 68,000 Latinas. And whereas HOPE enhances knowledge of Latinas' historical contributions to our society, coupled with knowledge of the political process in order to guarantee a more representative democratic government. And whereas to date, 220 HOPE alumni have been appointed to serve on over 400 state and local government positions, and 400 have served on over 1,200 nonprofit boards. And whereas we challenge each other through HOPE to ensure that Latinas achieve political and economic parity to benefit all communities and the status of all women. I, as mayor, along with the entire city council, to proclaim the 12th day of March, tomorrow, as Latina History Day in Palm Desert, and congratulate HOPE for their services to the Latinas of this great society. And we're pleased to issue that proclamation. Councilmember Quintanilla, I think you wanted to offer brief remarks.
I do. I have an email from the Chief Executive Officer, Helen Torres from HOPE. And in her email, knowing that we can't do this in person, Helen writes, "Dear Palm Desert Council members, thank you so much for the beautiful proclamation. It means so much to all of us at HOPE for you to recognize Latina History Day during Women's History Month, because it memorializes the important role Latinas play in American society. A special thank you to Councilmember Quintanilla for making this resolution possible. We truly appreciate it because she's one of our alumna. This is the first proclamation we have received from the city of Palm Desert. HOPE has impacted the lives of over 68,000 Latinas, and the HOPE Leadership Institute has trained 583 professional Latinas. The HOPE Youth Leadership Program trained over 499, and these are young women in high school. And also they have the HOPE College Leadership Program serving 170 Latinas. And the newest leadership program is the Binational Fellowship, which has trained 36 Latina executives from the United States and Mexico. Last year, HOPE virtually trained over 950 during Latina Empowerment Days throughout the state of California. Latinas learned the importance of energy and environment by understanding how to serve on the natural resource boards and commissions and how to save for retirement via the state's CalSavers program. Your recognition of Latina History Day reminds us that we still have much work to do to ensure that Latinas are reaching economic and political parity. Thank you for the honor."
Fantastic. Thank you. Before we launch into our business, I want to feature that we are joined by our brand new city manager, Todd Heilman, who's actually after 8 days no longer brand new. He's already pretty well broken in. But we're very, very pleased that you're on the job. Do you have any brief greetings?
Well, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the introduction, and I'm happy to be here, and really looking forward to working with the council and the community to keep Palm Desert moving forward. So thank you for the recognition.
Absolutely. And we have our town hall coming up next Tuesday at 4 o'clock, where residents will have a fuller opportunity to get to know our new city manager. This is the time for non-agenda public comments, an opportunity to appear before council on matters which are not on the present agenda. We do ask speakers to limit yourself to 3 minutes. And because of the Brown Act, the city council is not allowed to respond or engage in back and forth, but we may briefly respond or refer a matter to staff for follow-up. We regret that we can't engage you in conversation in this setting, but we're always available through the city council offices to engage with residents on any topics of concern. We'll use the raised hand function to learn if any attendees wish to speak on a non-agenda item. You can reach that by clicking on participants and going to the bottom of that list where raised hand will be one of your choices. And I'll invite the clerk to give more formal instructions.
Yes, Mayor. Thank you for participating in our remote virtual city council meeting. We will do our best to facilitate a smooth meeting with public participation. The agenda provided options and instructions for providing public comment at these meetings. Before we begin, please silence your other communication devices, such as your cell or desk phone. This will ensure that we are not hearing any feedback or causing interruption during the meeting. The mayor will invite public comment where appropriate on the agenda. Following our Zoom instructions. For those on Zoom, if you would like to make a public comment on the Zoom screen, please click on the raise hand button, which is found by hitting the participants tab. If you are using Zoom on your smartphone, tap your screen, look for the more option, and then click on the raised hand button on the screen. For those calling in using the phone line only, you can dial *9 on your keypad to signal that you would like to comment. When called upon by the city clerk, you will be allowed to speak. Please state your name, your first and last name for the record. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Please be patient as we navigate through these options, and if we need to, we will continue to tweak the process in efforts to make this experience go smooth. Thank you.
Thank you. I see one hand raised. Ms. Sanchez, would you like to elevate and call upon that person?
Yes. Mr. Tony Morris, you have 3 minutes. Mr. Morris?
You're
There, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you so much for allowing me to address you. My name is Tony Morris, and I'm a permanent full-time resident of Palm Desert. In my opinion, it is important as the city grows that it have local representation. The idea of establishing 5 districts in Palm Desert would create a more geographically and economically representative council. Many of the local residents would like to have this issue put forth to a vote by 2022. The simplest and least expensive method to accomplish this would be for the council to pass an ordinance. If you not do this in a timely manner, however, then the local residents will need to introduce a ballot measure. Now that COVID is beginning to recede, we would like to see this issue put on the calendar soon so the residents will be able to decide this issue in 2022. And thanks so much for
And-
allowing me to address you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Morris.
It's good to meet all of you.
I see no other hands. Does that conclude our public participation at this juncture?
Yes.
Very well. Which brings us to the consent calendar. Does anyone wish to remove any items from consent? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I do not wish to remove. I just, because of possible conflict and my ethical responsibility, wish to register an abstention on number 6.
Very well. Would someone like to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Excellent. Please take the vote. And of course, we'll note Mayor Pro Tem's extension on item number 6.
Mayor Pro Tem Harnick,
Yes.
Councilman Jonathan,
Aye.
Councilmember Nistandi,
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla,
Aye.
Mayor Kelly,
Yes.
motion carries 5-0 with the exception of item number 6 with Mayor Pro Tem Harnick registering an abstention.
Which brings us to item 12, request for authorization of award of contract to H&H General Contractors, Inc. for President Plaza East and West improvements in the amount of $7,123,383. Project number 758-14. May we please have the staff report?
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. You have before you a staff report recommending the award of the construction contract for President's Plaza. In the staff report, there are several recommended motions that staff is recommending, including amending the existing design contract with Dudek for additional design and construction engineering support, as well as appropriating additional funds from the restricted capital fund account, as well as setting aside contingency for the project. The 4 bids were received on March 2nd, and we are recommending award to the lowest responsible bidder, HH General Contractors. Subsequent to the bid opening, a bid protest was received from the second lowest bidder. You have already received a copy of the bid protest and staff's analysis and recommendation pertaining to the bid protest. I would like to also point out a couple of things. There is some upcoming staff report action as the project continues in development. Should City Council award the contract tonight, we will be coming back at a later date for City Council to dedicate an easement to CVWD on a little piece of property that is owned by the city. So CVWD can have their facilities relocated to this easement, which are a result of the project. Also, in addition, City Council did authorize staff when we authorized us to bid the project to include an incentive for the contractor. And that incentive clause is and provisions for that are in the contract with the contractor. We don't know, of course, if the contractor will achieve all 100% of that or 0% of that. So we are going to bring back to you an allocation of funding at the appropriate time once we know if the contractor met all or a part of their incentive. At this time, we're not asking or recommending City Council to set that aside at this time. Lastly, with a motion by City Council to award the contract this evening, if you so choose to award it, we also are recommending that the council in your action to waive the bid discrepancies that were identified in the protest and responded to by staff. Here to answer any questions. Also, our finance director, Janet, is also available should you have questions about the financing for the project.
Questions for staff? Councilmember Jonathan.
Mayor, just a quick question. I'm going to refer to it as the Harnack incentive provision, which I greatly appreciate and admire. I thought we approved that. Are you saying, Mr. Bowman, that we're just not funding it at this time?
Right. You approved providing provisions. Gosh, that was wrong. Providing for that in the contract, but we're not recommending setting aside the funding right now tonight.
Okay.
But rather let's bring it back to City Council once we know the contractor's actual performance.
Okay, thank you.
And am I correct, Mr. Bowman, that the projected time for the project is 5.5 months, roughly?
Yeah, approximately, Mayor. That's approximate. Yes.
With access enabled about 4 months into the project.
Yeah, are you referring to the incentive provision and how we have performance expectations for the contractor? I'm sorry.
If I read correctly, it's written such that the work will be staged to assure some access to parking places 4 months in.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Other questions? Remarkable.
I actually do have a question, Mayor. I was kind of hesitating, but I think that just for the sake of clarity and transparency and the fact that there was a protest that was raised, so I want to respect that someone took the time to prepare and is asking questions. The issue that's primarily raised is just a signature. Is that something that happens frequently, Randy, if I may ask? Is that something minimal that gets overlooked? And in the grand scheme of things, is a signature really that important?
I'll certainly ask a city attorney to weigh in. In my experience, from time to time, bidders do have discrepancies in their bids, whether it's before Planet Bids, there might have been math errors. Planet Bids takes away the possibility for math errors. But from time to time, we have seen, in my words, minor discrepancies, such as a missing signature or a misspell or a mistype. But I defer to the city attorney to add any additional information about that.
Yeah, if you may, we see all kinds of random irregularities because these bids are typically put together in a hurry, by people that are not sometimes, as diligent about their documents as they are about their construction projects. And the law allows us to waive irregularities as long as they're non-substantive, non-material. I mean, if they change the bid, if they produce any kind of questions about the bid, if they allow any kind of gamesmanship, then we can't waive those irregularities. We don't want to be waiving irregularities that give someone an advantage or not advantage. As to signatures, I don't recall, quite frankly. But in this case, we've had our folks that do this look at it. They're perfectly comfortable. We required 2 signatures. We got 1, but it was by the president, and that's sufficient under the law to bind the corporation. We also have a bid bond that kind of backs that up. So because the bid is just a temporary document, right? It gets rolled into a contract that is put together and executed with more formality. And that's the contract we really live with, and it kind of supersedes the bid. We live with it for the duration
Perfect.
of the project.
Yeah,
So
that's kind of just for the grand scheme of things, again, for the fact that we are discussing it. I want everybody who's viewing at home to understand when they say that they feel that City Hall isn't transparent enough. It may be that for everybody at home, they don't understand. We have the assumption it makes sense to us, but just wanted to say that this is not an oversight. This is a minor thing, especially in the time of Zoom, when people may be in different locations and it may be difficult to get the signature. So thank you for your time and for clarifying.
Thank you for that. And I will also assure members of the public, the primary reason we don't have more questions about proceeding with this big ticket item is that we've invested so many prior meetings hammering this out to establish exactly how we want to proceed. So I believe we're ready for a motion consistent with staff's recommendations, including waiver of bid discrepancies and rejection of the bid protest.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Very good. Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote?
Certainly. Mayor Pro Tem Harnick,
Yes.
Councilman Jonathan,
Aye.
Councilmember Nestandi,
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla,
Aye.
Mayor Kelly.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
And thank you, Mr. Bowman, for bringing us this far. We look forward to seeing you soon. Item number 13, resolution numbers 2021-05 and 2021-06. Approve resolutions of intention of the City Council of the City of Palm Desert to establish City of Palm Desert Community Facilities District number 2021-1, University Park, and authorize the levy of a special tax therein and incur bonded indebtedness within the proposed Community Facilities District respectively. May we have the staff report?
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. Veronica Tapia, your Senior Management Analyst for the Finance Department. The item before you tonight is the next step in the public financing effort toward the development of University Park. There are two resolutions of intent before you, one that authorized establishment of the Community Facilities District 2021-1, and the other authorizing the incurrence of debt for the purpose of financing cost of the public facilities related to the district. As it stands right now, each of the consultants are actively engaged at varying stages of their reporting and/or analyses to enable us to move to the next steps. Those steps, as far as the financing part goes, consist of a public hearing in April and adoption of related resolutions, a public hearing in May for the second reading of the levy of special tax, a request to approve financing related docs in late May, and barring any unanticipated delays, we should be able to close the debt issuance in mid-July. If there are any specific questions relative to the requested actions tonight, we have staff, bond counsel, and UPI representatives available to respond. Thank you.
Excellent. Are there questions? Councilmember Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wonder if someone can walk us briefly through the mechanics, the cash flow part of this. I mean, we have existing debt. The proposal is to create a Mello-Roos type community facilities district, which creates new debt that is paid by the property owners, as I understand it, through their property tax roll. So I'm not quite understanding the mechanics of the refinance. Can somebody just kind of, 20,000 foot view, just kind of walk us through that?
I can if you'd like. Basically, what we would be doing with this issue is we would be refunding an existing community facilities district. By that, it would take actually separate into two parts. There would be a refunding of the debt that was non-University Park investors property, and then we would issue a new debt, which would include the refunding of University Park, as well as possibly new monies, which is what these intents or resolutions of intent do. So basically what it's doing is we do have monies available in the improvement fund for University Park, but there is not enough to do some of the public infrastructure or public parks and the amenities in the park that were intended to be done at the time. So that is what this issue is doing. So it will be ultimately established once homes are built, once properties are actually improved. These will actually go on the tax rolls for each individual owner.
Very good. Thank you, Janet.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that question and answer. Any other questions? Someone ready to make a motion?
So moved.
And the so moved is staff's recommendation. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Please take the vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Hardick,
Yes.
Councilman Jonathan,
Aye.
Councilmember Nistandi,
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla,
Aye.
Mayor Kelly.
Yes,
Motion carries 5-0.
thank you so much. And item 14, ordinance number 1364, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Palm Desert, California, amending Palm Desert Municipal Code Section 2.34.010 to redistrict to restrict relatives of city staff and city council from serving on any city commission or committee if it would entail reviewing one another's work. This is the first reading of the proposed ordinance. And Mr. Gary, we're ready for the staff report.
Very good. Bear with me for one moment as I pull up the presentation. Very good. So good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. Chris Gary with the City Manager's Office. And as part of the city's comprehensive review of its advisory boards, the City Council previously approved in concept the adoption of an appointment policy that limits applicants with real or perceived conflicts of interest. And while the initial recommendation was conceptual, it's been further defined by the subcommittee for your consideration. Therefore, the staff report and presentation covers two items this evening. The first item is regarding an amendment to the municipal code related to conflict of interest, and the second item is regarding the submission of a draft 700 form, Form 700, during the application process to serve on an advisory board. The proposed items would apply a stricter standard for appointment to certain advisory boards. And as included in the staff report, the proposed amendment before you applies to section 2.34, committee commission member requirements in the municipal code. And it establishes a policy that limits the appointment of relatives of staff and council based upon the purview of the specific advisory board. Particularly, a relative of staff or council shall not serve on a advisory board if it could entail reviewing one another's work. And the definition of relative is consistent with the city's anti-nepotism policy found in section 2.52 of the municipal code. And the definition of review does not mean and does not include the routine recommendations from advisory boards to council, which I'll discuss on the next slide. The subcommittee recommends the proposed amendment that would apply only to the advisory boards located on the right or within the right-hand column. And with exception to the finance committee, these advisory boards, they serve in a quasi-judicial form, and subsequently council may have a review of some items in case of appeals relating to advisory boards, those advisory board decisions. And the finance committee serves really in a unique role in its responsibility that it goes really beyond routine recommendations that have larger financial implications. The Finance Committee reviews all work of staff and council. And particularly the Finance Committee reviews and it advises the council on things such as auditing, internal controls, financial reporting, investments, municipal debt, and other finance-related items with citywide implications. So for the second item, the subcommittee recommends a change to the administrative process in the application to serve on advisory boards. And the new administrative process will require a draft Form 700 to be filed along with the application to serve on advisory boards, listed in the right-hand column again. And to explain, on occasion, some advisory board members have to recuse themselves from particular items due to a financial conflict of interest. And this item would provide council additional information to understand what type and kind of volume of items an applicant may have to recuse him or herself. This process does differ from our typical standard of only requiring a Form 700 after appointment. And as initially mentioned, these proposed items would facilitate applying a stricter standard for appointments to certain advisory boards. And city staff and the subcommittee are available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gary. Questions? Looks like we're ready for discussion, which might lead to some questions. Comments? Councilmember Jonathan. We need to hear you.
Boy, I haven't done that in a while. I'm just looking. My apologies. That was an insightful comment because I think I'm going to start off my comments. So I'll ask my question in a second, actually. So look, I understand the intent of the subcommittee, and I think if I can summarize it, it is to avoid actual or perceived nepotism. And that's an appropriate goal. But the solution crafted by the subcommittee to me seems unnecessarily complex. In fact, I would say it's kind of the epitome of government bureaucracy. It's subjective, it's undefined, and it's also burdensome. I mean, we all have to fill out Form 700, and we know what a burden that is. And to place that burden on any of our residents that actually volunteer to help the city and get involved, to me, seems counterproductive. So I think there's an easier solution here if our objective is to avoid actual or the appearance of nepotism in our committees and commissions. And Chris, I'm going to ask you to go back. I think it's slide number 3 where you listed the committees and commissions. And I'll ask the question while you're loading that up. Which of these committees or any of our committees and commissions have actual authority to take action versus serving in strictly an advisory role? Obviously, Planning Commission would fit that, right? They can actually take action, approve or deny applications. I suppose ARC, Architectural Review Commission, can do the same. Do we have any other committees or commissions that act in a capacity other than an advisory role?
Councilmember Jonathan. So the committees on the right-hand side, they do have more discretion than the committees on the left-hand side. As you had just mentioned, Planning Commission as well as ARC. The Building Board of Appeals does have its a certain degree of discretion as well. And although a committee that's not used very often, they do hear appeals regarding the interpretation of the building code, and they have the ability to ratify. It's more in relation to the materials and methods for construction. The Rent Review Committee does have, they do serve in a kind of a quasi-judicial role as well.
Okay, and you omitted finance, and I would concur. I had the privilege of serving on that committee before, and my understanding is they have no authority to take any actual action. They listen to staff reports, and rarely, but if necessary, they make recommendations either to staff or to council. But I don't think finance has the authority to actually take any kind of action. Would you agree with that?
Councilmember Jonathan, perhaps the subcommittee would like to address this item.
Well, I don't know. We can-
I could, if you'd like, I can take a stab at it. I think part of Councilmember Jonathan, I think like part of the recommendation was of reviewing work. If we go back to the ordinance, and the Finance Committee oversees the financial consequences of the city, including overseeing some of the items that I previously mentioned.
No, I get that, but I want to make it clear that was not my question. My question was whether Finance Committee, unlike apparently the other four on the right, has authority to take any actual action. Can they take a vote that is on anything other than advisory? And if you don't know the answer to that, that's fine.
Sure, Councilmember Jonathan, I do not believe so. I know we have our finance director available as well.
Okay, so yeah, and it's my perception that you're right. I omitted the building boards of appeals and rent review because I don't think they've met in over a decade. And I don't think that's an exaggeration, but planning and ARC do have authority to take actual action. And so, we're in the comments section. So let me segue back to comments. The reason I'm drawing that distinction is I think there's a much simpler way to get to the goal of avoiding the appearance or actual nepotism. And that is one of two paths. Either A, we simply exclude relatives from serving on city commissions and commissions, period. And in fact, I have examples of other cities who have done exactly that. And that is simple. It is not complex. It is not burdensome. It is not subjective. You don't have to kind of dig out, a definition every time the issue comes up. So that's one path, and I'd be supportive of that. And the other path is a compromise, which says, okay, the other committees and commissions, whether it's marketing, housing, parks and rec, public safety, they don't have the ability to take action. So we'll allow relatives to serve. The ones that can take action where nepotism can be an issue would be the ones on the right in the screen before us, other than finance. So we would exclude relatives from serving on those committees and commissions that can take action. And we would allow relatives to serve on those committees and commissions that don't have that authority. So those are two ways that I thought of that can accomplish the noble goal that is before us, but do it in a more efficient manner. Thank you.
And thank you for that, because I think it crystallizes the issues. As a member of the subcommittee, I'll take the liberty of offering some additional explanation here. Even though as mayor, I usually wait to take my turn until last. The subcommittee really saw two distinct issues, and I want to feature that. I think, Councilmember Jonathan, you've done a good job of addressing the issue of whether relatives can serve. That's one issue. The proposal about Form 700 really seeks to address a distinct issue. Previously, the subcommittee had proposed prohibiting service from those with a real or perceived conflict of interest. And Councilmember Jonathan, you had a couple of critiques of that proposal, which I personally thought were very, very well founded. You commented that perceived conflict is vague and would be difficult to apply in our circumstances, since we want to, for example, have some architects on the Architectural Review Commission. We want to have some people on the Planning Commission who have expertise of a sort that someone might consider a perceived conflict. I thought those were very, very valid critiques. So at the same time, someone, for example, could have so many property holdings in the city of Palm Desert that their service on the Planning Commission would be inappropriate because they'd have to be recusing themselves too frequently to make their service worthwhile. So the thought process was this: all of our committee and commission appointees have to file a Form 700. We can't save them from that inconvenience. If they don't know it at the time of appointment, they learn it pretty quickly. The thought process was, let's ask for that as a first step for those critical committees that do make decisions. And especially the focus was on architectural review and planning commission. Someone who wants to be considered for those committees needs to know that their holdings will be a public record. And if we ask them to complete it as part of their application, then quite frankly, to put it in simple terms, at the time we do interviews and make appointments, we can judge whether someone's degree of holdings just doesn't pass the sniff test in terms of appropriateness of appointing them to one of these bodies. So that's where the Form 700 idea came from. Might not be the best approach, but it was an effort to be responsive to the prior critique. Your comments, Councilmember Jonathan, about the nepotism issue, I think, do offer us some clear choices. And the only difference between your two clear choices and the subcommittee's recommendation is inclusion of the finance committee in the group where perhaps a higher level of care might be warranted. And there's certainly room for difference of opinion about that. The subcommittee brought its perception here to get some feedback from other council members. I think our perception was, given their oversight responsibility for the financial ramifications of both council and staff decisions, it made sense to put them into that category. But of course, we're eager to hear others' perceptions. I want to volunteer this much more because some folks are probably aware that I have a relative who serves on a committee or commission. My mother's been a longstanding member of the Parks and Recreation Commission and was serving there before I was elected to council. Her term ends this June. She does not intend to apply for a further term. So I don't have a pony in this race, but I do have the benefit, and I think we all have the benefit of being informed by that experience. Because quite frankly, I don't perceive that her service there has posed any problem or issue whatsoever. So it gives us one experience point, you might say. And I would view it as a very positive thing if sons or daughters or relatives of other colleagues were willing and able to serve on any of those committees that don't take final action. Just in my view, leaving for discussion where the Finance Committee belongs in this mix. But let's hear from some who haven't spoken. Mayor Pro Tem.
I will just add a little. This has been, as most of you know this has been a long process, and we've just been trying to really update our committees and commissions to make sure that we have as much community member participation in our committees and commissions as possible. By the way, the Form 700, everybody here knows is no fun, but it is part of what we need to do so that we comply with our ethical obligations that that Sacramento sets forth for us. I want to highlight, because I think between Councilmember Jonathan and Mayor Kelly, you've really hit on so many points. And I just want to kind of highlight the financial issue. And if we think in terms of this evening's meeting and the preparation the council members have done for this meeting, going over check registers, and you look at the money that the city spends to keep this city moving well and to keep it as vibrant as it is. And then look at the money that we have voted on this evening. Let's see, what is $7.8 million, I forget, for President's Plaza, and then issuing debt. And these are tremendous responsibilities. So we hope that our financial committee is looking with great scrutiny at the way these funds are spent. And it's important that we have people on there who don't hesitate to scrutinize the expenditures or to ask questions, whether it's of the Desert Willow management or any management at the city, the investments or whatever it may be, that we as a body decide how that money will be spent or invested. So that's why we got where we got with the finance. We felt it's, again, when we've all done our ethics training, we know one thing: the law is not the ceiling, it's the floor. Palm Desert has certain standards, that's the ceiling. I mean, our goal is always to avoid even the appearance of impropriety. And that's how we finally got to where we got. We certainly don't want to exclude everybody from being on any committee or commission. So we tried to narrow it down to, I think we have 5 committees and commissions that we have a little, I love when you use the sniff test. It's so, we have a little higher level, a little higher standard for that. And that's how we, after a long discussion, months and months of discussion, that's how we got there. And it's difficult. We want to make the best decision possible. We want to make the most engaged, vibrant committees and commissions as we possibly can. And so that's what we're trying to do here tonight. And I would love to hear from others and hear what their thoughts are.
I read your lips, Mayor. I tend to agree with staff's recommendation on the Form 700. I mean, I have seen firsthand, actually, on the Architectural Review Committee when I have sat in on it before. And I'm not going to mention any names, but I did have an architect who was before that committee reach out to me and felt like he was being somehow not treated fairly because he wasn't in the favored group of architects in Palm Desert. And so I do see the importance of perhaps having a Form 700. Just for that reason, that and Planning Commission. I'm on the fence with finance still. I don't know that the case has been made that finance belongs in that group. My whole goal, dating back to my years at Sacred Heart School and Church, I was in charge of all the volunteers, and I would welcome as many volunteers as possible and wanted to make it as easy as possible. So I just hope our policies are welcoming and encouraging anybody in our community, whether they're related to us or not. So those are my comments.
You're still muted, Mayor, but I read your lips as well. My thoughts, I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. The 700 is not the end of the world. It's not a 1040 form. We're not asking anybody to go file their taxes. I think it's the spirit of integrity that says if you want to come help us to elevate the city to the standards where we're improving everybody's quality of life, we want the best qualified people. And I'm just thinking, hypothetically, right? We are hearing every week, every meeting, we've got residents that come and speak about wanting 5 districts, and we're hearing more and more about how they want a voter initiative. Let's say the voter initiative passes and somebody from somewhere in East Palm Desert happens to come from a family with 15 first cousins who all are Ivy League educated and have been on planning commissions in other cities and have all kinds of splendid qualifications. I think that that shouldn't exclude them from serving on anything. However, I think that we should have an outlined number of exceptions. I think finance, money's involved, that's a no-brainer. I think it's automatic that that should require some oversight. And I think it's just not that big of a deal. I think a 700 is non-negotiable. I think it's not an impediment. It's not anything that we wouldn't ask to just keep everything above board. And I think that with things like planning, I think is a perfect example. Let's say hypothetically, my 19-year-old daughter wants suddenly to get involved and she decides the planning commission is good for her so she can inform the city on her views. If there's a developer out there that hypothetically, again, this is all pie in the sky hypothetical, if all of a sudden these forms start coming about and we realize, how is this 19-year-old suddenly getting all of these funny looking things coming in? That would be the perfect reason to catch improprieties. Now, I know that's not my daughter's interest, again, hypothetical, but this is why we need to have those things in place, because it's an opportunity to flag even the slightest appearance of impropriety.
Thank you. And you make a good point, particularly now that we won't be having a youth commission. Some youth may want to apply to other committees, and I, for one, hope that our meeting times will accommodate that, and that your daughter and other equally engaged youths will find a place they can serve. So that's one good reason for at least creating a list of some permitted opportunities for relative service. Councilmember Jonathan.
Thank you. So, yeah, I think we might have a fundamental difference in perspective on finance, which is an area I know a little bit about. I think it scares a lot of people and they think, oh, it's money. The reality is that our finance committee doesn't function in any way other than our Arts and Public Places committee. So they're in an advisory role, has no access to money. It has no ability to make any decisions, to direct staff, or to take action. So oversight, of course there's oversight. That's why there's council members on that committee. Look, I think Mayor Pro Tem Harnick made a good point in the financial responsibility that we have, and that we spent almost $8 million tonight. And yeah, that's council's responsibility, not finance, not Parks and Rec, not any other committee or commission. It's ours. Another point the Mayor Pro Tem made is that we want to avoid the appearance of impropriety. The Form 700, look, I have some concerns because I think it's an added layer of bureaucracy. If we make everybody file drafts, that means staff has to spend time looking at it. It means we have to spend time listening to their conclusions and so forth. I think that problem generally takes care of itself, because if somebody's on planning commission or ARC that has repeated conflicts and they're continuously abstaining, guess who appoints those people and can unappoint them? That's us. So if there's a problem, it'll surface and we can deal with it. Having said that, I wouldn't fall on that sword. So if we need the Form 700, okay. But I think there's just such an easy solution, because this is about nepotism. Let's face it. We're all concerned. I heard Councilmember Quintanilla talk about transparency and what an important goal that is for her. There's an easy solution here. Let's be transparent. Let's just exclude family members from serving on committees and commissions. There's 50,000 people in this city. Our kids, can change the world in some other way, frankly. It's more important from a city perspective that we be transparent, that we avoid any appearance of conflict and or nepotism. And that's the way to do it.
All right, if no one has new opinions to express, I think I have heard a majority expressed support for a policy that defines some service opportunities for relatives. Who would like to make a motion?
I'll motion, Madam Mayor, to accept the staff's recommendation. Thank you.
Is there a second?
I'd like to second that.
Let's take the vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Harnick,
Yes.
Councilman Jonathan,
Nay.
Councilmember Nastandi,
No.
Councilmember Quintanilla,
Yay.
Mayor Kelly.
Yes.
Motion carries on a 3-2 vote with Council Members Nastandi and Jonathan voting no.
Thank you. We have no information items listed, no public hearings, which brings us to Mayor and Council Member reports and requests for actions. And Councilmember Nastandi, it's your turn to be first.
Okay. I have been in discussions with our marketing director, Thomas Soul, and we're trying to highlight what the city of Palm Desert is doing and those community leaders to talk about this past year and the pandemic and what it's done to our community and our businesses. And Thomas had a great idea, and I'm working towards interviewing Father Howard Lincoln from Sacred Heart School and Church, and to discuss what he's experienced during the pandemic, because he's the leader of the congregation. And I know Thomas wants to have some of us other council members also reach out and think of community leaders that we can also interview and package this to the community. So I'm looking forward to getting this arranged, and those are basically my comments on it, and hopefully Father Lincoln will agree to be interviewed by me. So thank you.
I'm sure he will.
Okay.
And, thank you so much for featuring this communications program. Thomas has worked with each council member on a particular interview, and at least one series of interviews has been released. I strongly encourage members of the public to visit our Facebook page or the website because these are sources of superb information to share and to frankly help keep everyone vigilant as we support each other to the finish line. Councilmember Quintanilla.
All right, got to unmute. Here we go. Let's see, for my reports, we've got first the Children's Discovery Museum. I have an update after our very pleasant meeting. There has now been, where did I write down the name? I apologize, I will get the name to you after, but there has been a new CEO that has been selected, identified. And so the organization is looking forward to move ahead with all the initiatives and the plans that they've got, a whole reinvention, and looking forward to reaching out and engaging the community as far as understanding what the community would like from the museum and becoming the community museum of discovery and not just the children's museum. So it's like I said, it's a reinvention. And so we're excited to see new leadership come on board. And this week we had a meeting of the Art and Public Places Commission. So there was the opportunity to hear from the artist Judy Chicago, and there was the proposed change in site. So I'm not sure if staff is available to chime in with some of the questions that were proposed as there had been identifying new locations. So is staff available to chime in on that?
Is that, Todd, is that ripe for discussion, or is that still being explored?
I probably need to defer to Thomas Soul. I think he's been working on that. Give us a quick update.
Yeah, I think I had briefly touched base with Thomas before the meeting, and so I just had it on my mind that there was still a couple of things that staff had that. So it was in terms of giving the report that some of these things happened, but there was still a few things that I did not want to report as they may have not been finalized, and was wondering if there had been the plan to present any of the. Oh, and here's Thomas.
Here he comes.
Hello, everybody. We did have quite a robust discussion about this possibility at the Art and Public Places Commission, and we are not prepared at this point to make any announcements about the site, the proposed site, or the status of that. We've been investigating just a variety of issues that have been raised by the community in regards to that, so that we can do our best to thoroughly vet the concerns that have been raised. And so we anticipate an announcement on that in the next few days.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Councilmember Jonathan.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. A quick comment and then a quick request. As the Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, it is International Women's Month, and earlier this week was International Women's Day. And the theme for this year is #ChooseToChallenge. So I'm going to take a quick moment and challenge the young girls and the young ladies that might be tuning into this meeting. If you're out there, I'm challenging you to aspire, to achieve everything that you can. And if you need inspiration, I would urge you to just look at my colleagues on council and see what they have achieved and the difference that they have made in our community. If they can do it, so can you. So that's my challenge. Request for action. So we have talked a little bit before about the city enrolling its municipal accounts in Desert Community Energy so that it can elect to go 100% carbon free. That would reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 1,400 metric tons. There's about I think 100 municipal accounts, maybe it's 180, but in total would reduce emissions by 1,400 metric tons per year. That's the equivalent of taking 300 cars off the road every year. Or if you want to look at it this way, it's enough to power 240 homes. So it's significant. It comes with the cost to go carbon free, but there's a deadline looming that if we were to do this, we have to notify Desert Community Energy no later than April 19th, and get this, so that the municipal accounts can be converted to the all carbon choice under Desert Community Energy a year from that point. That's how slowly the PUC moves. So even though action is required prior to April 19th, it wouldn't be effective until April of next year. So it would impact our budget only for 3 months. Anyway, so because of the timing deadline, I'd like to ask for this item to be put on the agenda either at our next meeting or the one after that, the first meeting in April. This is not about our residents opting in. The item that I'm requesting is consideration of the city municipal accounts being converted to 100% carbon free under Desert Community Energy. That's all I got.
Understood. And Mr. Heilman, does that timing seem feasible for discussion? That would be before we get into budget discussions.
Yeah, I would think within the next month or so, Janet, I'll have a pretty decent idea of what things look like. We're working on that right now with the budget. So I think if we brought it back to the first meeting in April, we'd be in a much better position to answer that question, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, can I interject? I had a couple of requests, but you skipped over to Councilmember Jonathan.
I'm sorry. Please.
If that's okay, no apologies. Excuse me, no worries. I have a request, and since it was brought up at today's meeting that the Rent Review Commission hasn't met in a very long time, My understanding is that there have been several residents that have reached out to me. I'm not sure if they have reached out to you as well, and saying that in spite of there being a freeze on the moratorium eviction, some landlords are increasing rent outside of the event of their leases. So not sure if that's something the city can look at, it protecting our most vulnerable residents, especially as, you know, there is a new rollout of rental assistance, but in the event of those that are unable to qualify for whatever reasons, to at least protect them from rent hikes in the middle of their contracts. And a second request, after the historic proclamation for Latina History Day, I have been in contact with members of the community who are requesting a proclamation that Palm Desert take a stand in denouncing anti-Asian American hate. We've seen the increase since the pandemic, and a lot of misguided frustration is impacting our communities. So I would like to make that request. And, you know, if we had a public or Human Rights Commission, is something I would bring to the commission. So we'll kind of keep tossing that at the wall and hope that that Human Rights Commission spaghetti sticks. But the request for a proclamation to denounce anti-Asian American hate.
Thank you. First, I want you to know that the conversation about a Human Rights Commission is not spaghetti. The Committees and Commissions Subcommittee continues to work on items that have been referred to it, which include addition of a homelessness committee, which Councilmember Jonathan has quite appropriately raised, and a committee to address at least some of the work that human rights commissions typically address. I would be pleased to work with you on the requested proclamation. That strikes me as highly appropriate.
Thank you, Mayor.
On the first issue, I'm wondering if an appropriate first step would be to have staff reach out to make sure that the landlords you're aware of are familiar with the Palm Desert program for rent relief to address whatever financial pinch they might be in. It's coming to my attention that some of the terrific programs that we're so proud of haven't reached the people most in need. So would that appear to be an appropriate first step to you, to have staff reach out to those landlords to make sure that they're familiar with opportunities to receive rent relief and help deal with whatever financial pinch they're experiencing?
Absolutely, Mayor Kelly. I think that's a great first step. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Great.
Mayor, just to follow up on the point, I have some concerns regarding the proposed proclamation. I don't know how to address those or what the appropriate forum. I'm not sure we can have discussion. How would I make those concerns known?
I'd be happy to hear them offline to try to make sure that what we come up with speaks for us all.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Harnick.
Yes. First of all, I wanted to compliment the mayor on the job she did on the Women's Council of Realtors, which was a long meeting because all of the cities had a lot to share. It was longer than I had anticipated, but our mayor did a great job representing the city, and I know she had some help with staff, and it just was very polished and a wonderful representation of our community. The RHNA numbers, the Regional Housing Needs Assessment have been finally adopted, voted on, and that's with the Southern California Association of Governments that both the mayor and I sit on the regional council. And it's been a long time coming. And fortunately, the city of Palm Desert is working on a lot of low-income housing and housing that will help fulfill those RHNA numbers. So that's really good news for us. Another thing that I think is important when we're seeing these stimulus funds come down from Sacramento and through the federal government, we're trying to get them as close to the community as to the genuine needs, because nothing like local understanding and local decision making to use those funds in the best way possible. And at RCTC yesterday, we took a look at a letter that the head of the self-help company counties, of which Riverside County is a member of, stating exactly that to Sacramento, to get those funds to us so that we can get our infrastructure projects done, which is a really important reason we are shovel ready on as many things as we can be, because the people who are, or the entities that are shovel ready will be, have the greatest access and ability to acquire some of those funds. And I did something that was amazing, and it seems like a long time out, for the Olympic Games, LA 28. And we had the mayor's, Mayor Garcetti had a panel of commissions, of transportation commissions, the chairs of those commissions, and for our MetroLink, so a few people to talk about how are we going to fix our infrastructure. So even before LA 28, we'll have FIFA, both men's and women's. We'll have the Paralympics. When LA 28 comes, we'll have the Super Bowl. So we're looking at opportunities, because those sorts of things bring everyone together and doesn't leave room for bipartisanship. So how can we fix our infrastructure throughout Southern California, connecting all of our communities in Coachella Valley and to the rest of our region? It was an interesting discussion, and there'll be more on that later. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will solely share this item. When it comes time to adjourn our meeting today, I would like to do so in memory of Tommy Edwards. Roughly 30 years ago, Tommy Edwards was first employed by Sunline Transit as a mechanic, and he rose through the ranks, holding the position of a chief performance officer before he recently passed. Tommy was a part of Sunline's evolution into truly an international leader in alternative fuels and zero emissions technology. He was consistently cheerful, and he could explain high-tech fuel systems just as well as Janet explains finances, which made him a very, very precious part of the Sunline team. So in a few moments, with your consent, I'll adjourn this meeting in his honor. Mr. City Manager, anything else to share this evening?
Not this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
You'll get more chances.
Yeah.
Hearing no other business, this meeting is adjourned in loving memory. Excuse me, Councilmember Nastanti, did you have something? No, in loving memory and with appreciation for Mr. Tommy Edwards. Good night.
Good evening. Oh, everybody keep getting tested. I forgot.
5:31 p.m.